So we're going to look at 3 different replays at 3 different MMRs of people playing Queen of Pain. This first one is Herald 2, then we'll be looking at an Ancient 1 player, and finally an Immortal. And what's very noticeable with the hero over the past few years is that as the MMR gets higher and higher, her win rate gets higher and higher by a slight amount. So straight away there's 2 observer wards placed on mid lane. I think both players could have potentially just seen that they placed the observer wards down. Viper's ward is here and Queen of Pain's ward is also on this cliff. Neither of them get dewarded from what I remember. So if we have a look at what happens here at the very start, this is something that quite commonly happens throughout this lane. Viper throws down acid and pushes the lane, and Queen of Pain maybe tries to go for a deny every now and again. And Queen now has to last hit behind her tower, which ends up resulting in her not getting very much. And you see here, instead of going for the range creep, she decides now to go harass. This is a pretty bad decision to be doing, and it's something that continuously happens throughout the laning stage. And it's okay like that happen you once every now and again, but preferably that's not something that you want to continuously do throughout the game. So you see the acid comes in, Viper comes along, and there isn't even any attempts for Viper to go for denies because the wave is pushed in so much. And Queen of Pain is really struggling with last hits here. Now this is where you can optimize and change your skill build, but the Queen of Pain does something different. She ends up maxing out her dagger. So sometimes when the wave is being pushed in like this, you will see people get Scream of Pain for 2 levels, and this actually scales pretty decently a little bit later. Now here's something else that happens quite commonly just in the laning stage, is that she throws out a dagger, then the acid comes down. Instead of just walking out of the acid, she wastes mana to blink away, and this is a pretty long cooldown on blink as well. And buying boots of speed also isn't really going to be that helpful. If you just wanted to spam out abilities in the lane, you might want to go for battle, but preferably, you know, going null talisman or something like a wand. Depends on kind of the laning stage and what heroes you're against, but you do want to get stats on this hero. And the big reason why you want to emphasize focusing on farm on this hero is because you want to get your orchid timing as early as possible. And with this start that Queen of Pain is going to get, she's going to really struggle to get her orchid on time. But Viper ends up dying here to just this dagger plus getting hit by the tower, I think 3 or 4 times. So that's something that happens occasionally in Herald games, but it's not something that you want to rely on to get kills. Now you can get it maybe once every few games in Herald, but it probably won't even happen in Guardian or Crusader. Maybe it does. Queen of Pain got her 2 null talismans, she got some tangos, and she's looking to go onto Viper here. And preferably what you want to do here, instead of what Quap's going to do now, is to pretty much like walk down this way and try and flank in behind the Viper. But instead she commits her blink to go in. You can use your blink instead to go defensively, but she goes in, blinks, she's taking damage now from the creeps. You probably even just want to wait for your creep wave to come. She uses pretty much everything on Viper here and right clicks the Viper and dies, and then the Viper dies soon afterwards. But Queen of Pain doesn't get the experience as much as what Viper would get. So that's actually like not a great trade, and with such a long cooldown, which is 125 seconds. Something else that could have helped in that interaction was better health management on how you're dealing with regen prior to that engagement. But now we have Queen of Pain running with 1 illusion and her real hero, and she's after walking into a bunch of mines, and she's finding more mines. Get out! No, Techies is here. She blinks in on top of another mine, nearly ends up dying. Pretty lucky even to get out here. And Skyra is there. If the other players were fast enough to react there, that was probably just a death there again. And it's kind of too early to go and rotate to somewhere, especially when you don't have your ultimate ready. You probably just want to focus on farming and not let this Viper take your middle tower, because this middle tower lets you teleport to different places, or like teleport to the middle of the map, and gives you really good map control for the rest of your team. And as a mid player, you don't really want to be leaving it die so easily, especially here at like 8.5 minutes. Now yet again she blinks in on top of Viper, who's much stronger at this stage and has been given like 2 or 3 creep waves, just solo experience uncontested here to the Viper. And the Queen of Pain, even if she was just standing there, can pull the creeps behind her tower so that the creep wave doesn't attack the tower and do damage to it. So for the past 2 minutes or so, Queen of Pain has literally just been sitting top, kind of taking last hit, reaching experience. And currently, even though you're getting kills here, you're losing out on huge amounts of gold and experience. These creep waves here are just like dying, and no one's even taking this. Like, this is free experience and gold. Now eventually anti-mage like finally comes here, But preferably what you want to be doing as a mid player is to last hit this, then blink away and go somewhere else. Especially with Queen of Pain, you have such great mobility. You should always be emphasizing having this wave pushed out before you go and gank somewhere else. So Viper ended up taking this tower on middle solely because Quap just didn't defend it. And if you were up against some other heroes like Alchemist or Invoker, Shadow Fiend, like they're just going to farm the jungle and get their big items that they want before they can go and get big. And the other advantage of just pushing the creep wave, as you'll see here, is that someone needs to show on mid lane in order for them to defend the creep wave. And all Queen of Pain has to do is just push the creep wave. She doesn't have to fight the player who's at the other side defending the wave. But she never ended up doing that, and she just focused so heavily onto other lanes and kind of just sat in the lanes. It didn't really do much impact. As a result here, we see Viper hitting level 15 and Queen of Pain is full 2 levels behind. So now Queen of Pain has picked up her Orchid here right at like 31 minutes. She doesn't end up using the Orchid active, but she just ends up clicking her ulti. She still has the active ready, and she gets silenced before she can silence the Skyrat. And generally you want to be using your Orchid to start the engagement near the very start, because the way the Orchid works, you can kind of get just overall total more damage with your combo if you have it active. As well as this, she probably wants to also toggle to Intreads, which someone has probably seen this like the entire time. She's going like constant strength damage. So here comes the first real team fight. So Medusa's basically baiting into these mines, and they have a sentry ward down I think as well, so they're after just walking into it. But Queen of Pain goes in onto techies. She hits her ulti on 2 heroes, yet she still doesn't use her Orchid. She's now, I immediately regret my decision to blink in there. So this is why you need to be really careful about where you're fighting up against techies with Queen, because you're just going to be able to blink in on top of his mines like very easily and almost like suicide. So here we have like a blink in, no Orchid used again. Oh, come on, use your Orchid, like, oh. Again, no Orchid. Yay, finally the Orchid after you used all your spells, which again like kind of defeats the purpose of it. So as you might have predicted, this was a loss for Queen of Pain, and one of the most noticeable things is her net worth. She's the second lowest in the game, which is pretty outstandingly bad for a mid player, and you should be near the top. So now we're looking at an Ancient 1 Queen of Pain. And as you'll notice that this Invoker is a lot better opponent. He tries to deny the creeps a lot more, which then makes it harder for Queen of Pain to progress to her items. Now she has bought a lot more stat items, which has helped her secure a little bit more farm and rushed for a bottle as well. Now she's going in on an engagement here, which ends up resulting in her taking a huge amount of harass here. And Invoker is diving the tower, but even though Invoker is a better opponent, yeah, she just goes down here. So it's like, all you have to do, I guess, is maybe the Herald player was actually Ancient, and he was able to bait the opponent under the tower, just like this Ancient player. So when it comes to Vision and Regen, we'll see that the Queen of Pain has now used up all of her bottle charges, and she has this Observer ward, which now lets her look for the rune. She keeps the rune just invisible distance of her just before it spawns, and when it spawns, she instantly goes and blinks to pick it up so that no support can come and potentially steal it away from her, as well as having a very preferable build for doing damage. So with this Regen rune, you'll see that Queen of Pain is coming under tower, Dagger is the Invoker. Just keep harassing him and trying to get as much harass trade back and forth, and then Regen runes back up. This is a really good play, and pretty much just good utilization of the rune. As well as this, you'll see that she flies out herself an Observer ward. She goes in on Invoker, tries to combo him. She didn't end up killing him, but it forces Invoker to go back to the fountain again. This is where she pretty much mitigated like several salves here for Invoker and lots of regen. This Observer ward is also a really smart placement. It allows her to see the runes, which then allows her to go and get a much better chance of getting kills into other lanes. And pretty much like these runes, if you get good ones, they can often just like be automatic free kills if you use the runes correctly. So the rune utilization, not only how you're picking them up with vision, but also how you're taking those runes to somewhere is really important. So this blinking was quite aggressive here, and if the Invoker was a slightly higher level, he could have really just done like a lot of damage here to the Queen of Pain, and probably not the greatest blink in there, but something that isn't punished in that scenario. Now you'll end up seeing that in a couple of seconds. Now she ends up going for another blink in aggressive here. And the Invoker was ready this time, and he very easily is getting huge amounts of damage out on Queen of Pain, and also a very nice Sunstrike there. So this is stuff that wasn't punished the first time when she blinked in, but got punished a second time. And this is something that you just need to be aware about, what damage that the other mid laner can do. As Queen of Pain, your health is relatively low at all parts of the game, so you need to be very questionable, especially early on, because you don't want your snowball to fall off. So just as she's respawning, she's having a look at other lanes, and she's checking this bottom lane, and she sees mid lane. Invoker is actually walking away from the middle lane, so he's not pushing down the tower. She decides to go on to Sniper. Sniper's teleport got cancelled by Bounty Hunter, yet she still committed her ultimate. Kind of unnecessary to do that, and you really want to save your ultimate here for more important targets, or even if you're just able to get any kills without using your ultimate, that's where you start to really excel with this hero. So now we have a dive here yet again, and Spectre is after using his ultimate, and Queen of Pain blinks in. Unfortunately, she ended up blinking in where Klinks had just clicked his ultimate at the same time, and she ends up dying a little bit too deep there, and a couple of seconds off her ultimate. If she'd saved her ultimate from the last engagement and not used it on that sniper kill, it would have been available there in mid, or not have to commit as far forward. Now when she's respawning here, the Baden is kind of baiting for kills here, and she ends up picking up a pretty easy kill here over onto Necrophos, and kind of just to clean up on this dive that's happening. Now she's also blinking in here again, gets a kill onto Klinks. A very good use of your ultimate there, and gets out and kills a sniper as well, and just about survives there, almost even died. So right now there's two heroes which are showing on mid lane, Invoker and Necrophos, and Queen of Pain is kind of standing in a very aggressive position, very regular, and Klinks appears from behind and ends up pretty much, they get a really easy kill on her. Yes, they pretty much committed everything on top of her, but it's kind of suspicious as well when there's no one showing in the other lanes to where they could potentially be. And you need to be careful of these things as Queen of Pain, especially when you're playing against any invisible hero. And the other thing is that at this rank, or even a little bit higher, you're really expecting people to predict these sort of plays of happening. It's kind of expected of this rank or even higher. So these are not mistakes that you want to be making, and pretty soon after this you'll end up seeing Queen of Pain making a quite similar mistake from what I remember. Yeah, she gets tornadoed, then meatballed, and just comboed down, and she never blinks away either, so she ended up I don't think she could blink because she was cold snapped. So pretty much not great to be getting cut out multiple times like that, and that's something that Invoker, the hero, does have an advantage over you. The Warlock is after used his ultimate here. Queen of Pain blinks in, she just ulties the Invoker, and now she's getting tornadoed and comboed down straight after the blink and dies. Yet again, a pretty bad position and not very good ultimate either. She only hit one hero, and you see that there's a juicy 4-man ultimate that could be pulled off right here, right now. So now another team fight is breaking out here, and we have Queen of Pain with a very questionable blink here that really stands no reason. She ends up ulting here. She daggers the gyro who's overcoming his position. So now here's a great example of just having a vastly better position over your opponent. You're getting vision up on high ground as well as punishing the gyro's position. She's in and out in the team fight, pulling people over towards her. Then she can blink back in. She doesn't commit too far. She focuses down one enemy at a time and gets some damage out and blinks away. This is really good in and out gameplay of getting your spells off and not dying during hitting your spell. And the amount of damage she's outputted in this fight is probably a lot more than what she's been doing in previous fights. So we see that Queen of Pain's damage here is pretty massive in comparison to everyone else. She's the #1 highest damage dealer, and if she did more of this and cross for other fights, this is how you rank up and get better. So the enemy is pushing down this tower here, and Queen of Pain's making her way in. She screams on top of them, and then she uses her ulti, and pretty much this is a whiffed ulti, but she keeps continuing on. She's not really outputting that much damage. They're lacking detection here for Klinks, but the BKB is a really good item pickup. As well as that, she has the Grove Bow, which reduces their magic resistance, which basically means that our spells are going to do more damage. So we have Bounty Hunter here, who's after getting caught and blinked in from Queen of Pain with her BKB instantly used. And pretty good, she's using all of her spells and targeting someone, but here she's committed way too far forward with the blink. And this is what I'm talking about. 1-for-1 trades are pretty bad. You want to be aiming for 2 or 3 kills per fight. Even if you end up dying like that, sometimes happens in fights, but You ideally obviously don't want to be dying, but going for these 1-for-1 trades are really not what you want to be doing on this hero. Queen of Pain is being chased after here, and the Necrophos is coming in a very far position. Necrophos gets the ultimate off Inspector and gets huge amounts of health regen here. And the Queen of Pain basically gets baited into this and gets comboed down. And not the necessarily best fight. Her team wasn't ready for that, and also she ends up having to buy back soon after this. This is just a really good bait out by the Necrophos in that play, and a better understanding of the hero. Queen of Pain starts off with a really good ultimate on top of the ultimate from Warlock, as well as this, she's now a preferable position on the high ground here, and she's trying to just blink away, and she knows Invoker is chasing after her somewhere. She ends up standing under the sentry ward, but she's no Orchid for him, but she gets Orchided now by the Invoker, and she can't get away. So that's pretty much GG here at this, because she'd end up like going to lose tons of towers off of this. You lose so much map control. This is what really pulls your victory condition like really far behind, and she hasn't really established anything at this point in terms of like snowballing. So now we're going on to an Immortal rank 1 Queen of Pain, and she's body blocking her creep wave, but Lone Druid takes his bear to cut the wave, and she's actually up against a mid lane Lone Druid here. So what her decision to do is to aggro the creep wave and pull it behind her tower, so that instead of tanking it and having to last hit under her own tower, she instead has the second creep wave tanking it. This ends up her resulting in pretty much losing close to like 100 health or so. She didn't have to use any of her shared tangos, and she misses 2 creeps and the second creep wave. So this is a really good start for someone who's when you're up against someone who's heavily manipulating the creep wave like this Lone Druid is. And you'll also notice that there's a lot more denying and contesting of denies going on just within these last hits that are going on here in the very first few waves. And you'll also see she aggroes the creep wave under her own tower here to actually even kill the creeps quicker. And the reason why is because Lone Druid doesn't have a very long attack range, and he a lot of time relies on his bear to get close to the creeps in order to last hit them. And if she doesn't push the creep wave quickly, what ends up happening is that Lone Druid can push faster, and then she'll have to constantly keep last hitting under the tower. You'll also notice that her skill build is kind of odd, where she's got 2 points in Scream of Pain at the start, instead of what you might commonly see getting the dagger. And the reason why is because it again allows you to push the creep wave very quickly, and also allows her to hit the harass both onto the bear and maybe even the Lone Druid hero itself. So Queen of Pain's after hitting level 5, she's 3 points in her Scream and hasn't leveled up the other 2 points. Notice how Lone Druid is full health right now. And what she does is she goes 1 Scream, and then the Lone Druid came in Avalanche tossed by the Tiny, and Queen of Pain levels up her Blink and just can come in and finish him off pretty easily. And Lone Druid's hero itself doesn't actually have that much health, so if you're able to get up behind it like this Tiny did, it ends up being very easy for this Queen of Pain to come along and get the kill. Now straight after that, Queen of Pain has a bottle. She picks up 1 bounty rune and comes for the second bounty rune here. So this pretty much allows her to heal back up regardless of, and mainly her mana she's dealing with for healing back up. You have an observer ward down here, and Queen of Pain's support is very active here, so this allows her to blink in aggressively here onto Lone Druid, as well as the Scream and also the Sonic Wave, which is her ultimate. It very easily finishes off Lone Druid, and this is where Lone Druid's low health actually can be easily bursted down by Queen of Pain. So now 7 minutes, she went back to the fountain to heal back up, and Tusk ends up going in aggressively. So instead of focusing Tusk, which is pretty much going to die already, she kind of could predict that very quickly, she focuses down this Necrophos, but he ends up being able to teleport out and there's no stun. So straight after that, she's just like pretty much going back to her lane. There's no point of wasting time sitting top, what you might have seen the Herald player doing, which was sitting top for like about 5 minutes. That's really not what you want to do, and you want to push your creep wave in, just like this Queen of Pain is doing here. So this is really fast pacing. It's 9 minutes now, and she's gone for a smoke gank with Tiny, finds Phantom Lancer, and Phantom Lancer gets knocked out pretty quickly, just like deleted pretty much. So now we're coming up to 10 minutes, the runes are going to spawn again, and you'll actually notice that they have an observer ward up here near the Roche pit. I just want to point this out. This is actually a really cool ward. See here, they have this ward, which the Lone Druid dewarded the one that was over here at this point. So this is one that's very good for getting the runes, but will very unlikely to get dewarded. So back to Queen of Pain now. She's going for the other bounty rune. Tusk rolls on her, and she has her ultimate ready. Another 20 seconds. But here, instead of blinking and going aggressive, she's just using the haste rune that she's just after picking up. And again, really easy when you've maxed out this Scream. The other advantage of maxing out the Scream is that you also get, it's pretty easy to last hit in lane over in comparison to the dagger. And we want to notice the Queen of Pain's positioning here. So notice how she's sitting pretty far back in the fight, and she doesn't want to commit too far and pretty stupidly. And she's also not wasting her ultimate when everyone's full health and the rest of her team are not really there to go for a fight. So also she's pretty far back here, and the longest cast range spell that's here that could potentially kill her is Tusk Snowball. And she's just outside the cast range of it, or even if she hits just inside the cast range of that spell, she can just blink away because it's pretty easy to react to that one and have fast enough reaction times for Snowball. So her team are going for a smoke gank, and she ends up picking up a haste rune, and I think she's just going to end up joining this team fight a little bit late here. But Tusk is stuck in a cliff, so this is a really good team fight to go into. She blinks in on top of the Lone Druid and the Venomancer and pretty much bursts the Venomancer down from almost full health. As well as that, now Lone Druid is in trouble too. She can't really act right now because she's getting rooted and then feared by the Lone Druid Spear, and pretty much she just lets her teammates pick off the kill rather than her committing too much and potentially even dying or taking unnecessary harass. She can also heal back up with her bottle charges as well, which is really nice. And she almost has her Orchid here coming in at 15 minutes. So now 5 minutes later, they're going for a smoke gank, and pretty much nothing has happened since Queen of Pain's picked up her Orchid. The enemy team has pretty much just been avoiding her constantly every single fight, or any time that she even shows on the map or her teammates show. So it's really, these past 5 minutes have mostly favored the Radiant side. So if we notice now, look at all the heroes are showing on Queen of Pain's perspective. This is when she decides to blink in and then go. She waits for her teammates to go in first and she hits her ultimate onto multiple heroes. But even though her ultimate hits, that's not everything to do with the hero. She also never used her Orchid here, but she did get her BKB off. And this is a really early item builds, but still they end up losing this fight. Kind of probably like a bad initiation here, never really focused anyone in particular. So the Radiant side ended up taking Roshan and got the Aegis. And if we have a look at what is the strategy right now, they're actually split pushing. And this is not always the best strategy to use, but their team is very fit for split pushing. They have a Nature's Prophet. They have the bottom lane. If you have a look at the mini-map, the bottom lane is constantly just pushing in, and Queen of Pain's pushing the other lane. So it's pretty much almost like Rat Dota at this point. So you see Queen of Pain comes here, she blinks away, and pretty much forcing the enemy to constantly have to come back and defend their towers, where they can't go just pushes 5 to mid lane with their Aegis. Now pretty soon after this, there's a team fight which she ends up ignoring, and she ends up going pushing yet again. So while they're pushing there, you'll see that Nature's Prophet is on bottom and pushing here at the same time. This is pretty good strategic wise, and you'll end up seeing Necrophos has to teleport back here. Now Necrophos ends up using her, so her response here could just be to press BKB, but instead what she does is she just clicks the Orchid on him. This doesn't give Necrophos enough cast time to be able to click his ultimate onto Queen of Pain and potentially try and burst her. So now we have PL after walking through a Sentry Ward here, and Queen of Pain's got rolled on and ultied by the Tusk. Now the PL is getting pretty low here, but he still has the Aegis, and Queen of Pain cancels her ultimate a few times. So even Immortal players are whiffing their ultimates. It's not just the Ancient players. They sort of rank 1 too. So it's coming up to the power rune spawning in a couple of seconds here. If we have a look at the enemy's position, this is what Queen of Pain can't see. The Necrophos is standing here waiting, trying to go on the Queen of Pain, as well as Lone Druid and PL. Now the PL ends up predicting that she's going to go for the power rune, and this is where Queen of Pain goes. It's only an illusion rune too, but the Tiny blinks in and gets a Glimmer Cape out on the Queen of Pain. She still picks up the rune and goes and gets tossed away. Pretty much Tiny saving this Quap for this life. And she ends up clicking her Shiva's Guard, blink BKB. She still hasn't clicked Orchid on anyone, and she also has a Quiver, so she's outputting a lot of damage now and has a more favorable position in this team fight because she's able to stay at the edge. As well as that PL is now a Diffusal Blade as well, so she needs to be careful with her mana burning. She toggles the Strength Treads, she still has 1 charges, and she's pretty much just getting a huge amount of physical and magical damage out throughout this fight. She did end up using the Orchid near the end of that fight, I didn't see onto who, but she was just gonna die as well here if she didn't teleport back to the fountain because the Venomancer ulti. So this is really impressive like damage output throughout, but a lot has to go with commending Tiny because of those like absolute saving, absolute unit of a player. So now Queen of Pain can see the lone Judies. After walking through a ward, she blinks in and orchids him and BKBs. The BKB prevents her from getting roared because the roar will actually fear you from the bear. So that's pretty much the BKB prevents that. And now this is a really good pick off 1-by-1 here. And that pretty much Queen of Pain starting that initiation as well. And she can be a lot more confident with doing this as well because of her much higher armor than what she would have if she didn't have a Shiva's Guard. So there's a fight breaking out on mid lane, and Queen of Pain is a little bit late to join, but she comes in from the back, which is kind of unsuspecting. She also gets a fear off and pretty much separates the team fight here with the Sprout, which you end up seeing here, and PL and Necrophos are at the other side of it, while Lone Druid is stuck in the river. The Queen of Pain is pretty smart. She comes back to where her teammates are, and this allows you just to much more reliably survive and fight. Because we'll end up seeing, even though she has Lincoln Sphere and a Shiva's Guard to give her more armor, you'll see that she gets entangled pretty easily and almost ends up dying here with the Dagon 5 on Necrophos. Now, just after this, she ends up toggling to Strength Treads. Even in the later parts of the game, people are still toggling to Strength Treads when required to just survive a little bit more. She ends up blinking in to finish off the PL. Now, just as he's respawning, she spam clicks the Orchid onto PL so that he has a really hard time to respond. But her next blink ends up going to like a perma entanglement from Alfredo. So regardless of like that stupid play, she does have a 2-time TI winner on Nature's Prophet carrying her. So this scored like 10 or 7 kills, 2 deaths, like very little mistakes and very high impact, especially on the early parts of the game, which allow the cores to pretty much like kind of carry her later, even if she makes some pretty hefty mistakes. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more Dota content like this, make sure you subscribe. And I also have a guild. If you want to join that, you can like find out information about that in the Discord.